So, A United Kingdom. This is the new film directed by Amma Asante, who previously directed Belle, that period drama about a mixed-race woman growing up in a completely white society. And this one is written by Guy Hibbert, who recently, as Sean Connery would say, had success with Eye in the Sky, that drone movie. And it is based on the true story of Seretse Khama, played by David Oyelowo, who was the heir to the throne of Bechuanaland, which is now Botswana. And in 1947, he was studying law in London, and he meets a white British woman called Ruth Williams, played by Rosamund Pike, and the two fall in love and get engaged, which causes something of a scandal, both for the native people of Bechuanaland and the British authorities who run Bechuanaland. Here personified by Jack Davenport and Tom Felton in full sneery evil Brit mode. And basically, the Brits want to keep South Africa happy because they rely on them for economic reasons. They've got gold and uranium, and the South Africans are about to introduce the apartheid, so they don't want an interracial couple just across the border. So, if you've seen the poster for this film or the trailer, you have a pretty good idea of what you're in store for. And every year, films like this come around where it's like The Imitation Game or Fear of Everything, where it's important story plus good actors, handsomely mounted.
It's a bit like something.
Very
it's
safe.
a bit like The King's Speech or something, isn't it?
Sure,
that
like,
won an Oscar, so now we have something that's doing a similar thing every year.
Yeah, and of those types of films, I think it's one of the better examples, purely because the actual history it's covering is genuinely fascinating, but it is a very, very safe film, and I was never really engaged with it. And I think one of the main reasons this is that it talks down to its audience a lot, and it feels that it's very anxious that the audience understands the dramatic stakes of their relationship, and to do so, you have to understand the sort of balance of international power in the 1940s, which is like a bit complicated, but not particularly complicated, but it overcompensates to the point that pretty much all the dialogue is contextualizing everything all the time, much to the detriment of the film. There's literally a bit where Jack Davenport says, "Do you know what apartheid means?" And it's like, yes. Obviously I do.
Yeah.
But that is sort of atypical of the dialogue. And there's a lot of characters explaining stuff that other character would obviously know just for the benefit of the audience. And it's just so functional getting from A to B that it's very hard to invest in it. And there's like no real space for the audience. Like, you're just being told things the whole movie. It never gives you the benefit of the doubt. You know, nothing ambiguous about this film. However, though I wasn't emotionally engaged in the story, it was to an extent interesting because it's a really interesting bit of history. And basically through some plot machinations, which I won't go into, the couple are separated in the second half of the movie, and the film switches to the British government, the upcoming 1950 election where Churchill got back in, and our history of imperialism. And that's when the film's really working. And even though it's a very broadly drawn film and the characters kind of borderline panto at times, like Tom Felton is just doing sort of like colonial Draco Malfoy. He can only play Draco Malfoy. That's his only role people allow him to play.
He's either like Draco torturing apes.
Yeah, exactly.
Draco oppressing the Africans.
And it's a bit sort of boo hiss, but the actual facts are truthful. And we have a very hagiographic, is that words? Hagiographic relationship with our history, like the British people, and it's usually perpetuated by films of this nature. But this one actually says, you know, hey, we did a lot of horrible stuff, and you know, we didn't beat the Nazis, and the welfare state was all great. There's still this legacy of imperialism interfering with international affairs and cozying up to apartheid.
It's also good because it's quite late for that kind of movie. Like,
yeah,
you know, it's a good reminder. I mean, there's a lot of like 19th century colonial movies where you're like, yeah, you know, sure,
but we got rid of that.
Sort of, yeah, exactly, but we did it. But like 1947, it's late to have this stuff.
Yeah, and Churchill's a bit of a dick in it, got to say. Churchill. There is one great, this is not really a point, but there's a great bit where Seretse is exiled in Britain, and there's a knock at the door, and there's like all these progressive Labour MPs have come to like champion his case, and this guy's like, hello, I'm Anthony Benn. It's like, it's Tony Benn!
Oh, really?
Like 25-year-old handsome Tony Benn. And as lefty that I am, I was like, this movie just became amazing.
5 stars.
5 stars. But anyway, this political stuff is quite interesting, but it's like half political thriller, half romance drama, and the romance is by far the weakest element of the film, and it's very clumsily handled. The opening 20 minutes are a bit of a slog. They sort of meet, they exchange glances, they dance.
Dances, get engaged,
get ostracized, get married, all of them at all within the space of about 20 minutes, and it's just very flat, and it's really lacking a bit of passion. You know, like these people defied authorities and risked being ostracized by their respective homelands, and it needs a bit of like, it's a bit sexless. You know, it's a bit too.
Yeah.
Oh, hello. Oh, okay. Yes. And there's like one tiny bit of a sex scene on their wedding night, and I was like, this is a movie where a sex scene would actually be good. I feel you need a bit of passion, and they're both very good actors, but they're a bit too old for the roles they're playing. And I think David Oyelowo was a producer on the film, so he championed and got it together. But and it's never really explicit what the ages they're playing. But in real life, they were like in their mid-20s, and both of Rosamund Pike and him, I think, sort of late 30s. But it doesn't really make sense that they would do this in their 30s. He's like, I've got to go home and learn to be a king. He's like, you're almost 40, man. It's like, what are you doing? Like, you should have, it's the sort of thing where, like, I can imagine a 25-year-old making this impetuous decision, but a 40-year-old wouldn't.
Right, yeah.
So it does actually, like, affect the dramatic stakes of the movie. And the romance is sidelined in the second half, which was a bit of a relief because it wasn't working, but it means that Rosamund Pike just gets forgotten about. I don't know, like, I'm just a bit worried that David Oyelowo is already doing roles where he just, like, delivers emotional speeches and people clap.
That's certainly the impression I got from the trailer for this movie.
Like, it's true of Queen of Catway and this, and it's like, I think there's a reason you're producing all these movies, David. You're awesome in them. I want to play the awesome guy everyone applauds. But yeah, it's just got that classic biopic problem where it just rattles through events in a way where it pays everything lip service, and didn't really have a focus. I'm not really sure what the film's about. But unlike other films, the history is really interesting. So I was entertained on that level just because I had loads of details I didn't know. And my mum liked it. Good. So core audience
Pleased.
It's just a movie, isn't it? Just one of those films. Look at that poster, and the reaction that inspires from you is the film, I would say.
Fair enough. That's certainly, everything you said really chimes with my impression I got from the trailer for the movie.
Yeah.
Which looked like it was, interesting setting, but like definitely some rather broad notes, including Jack Davenport saying something like, now you will see what happens when you defy an empire.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think he's a baddie.
It's a bit where it says, have you no shame?
Have you no shame, sir?
I love my wife, but I love my people, and I love delivering speeches, and I love crying. I love crying, giving speeches.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Sam and Danny both watched a film and they decided to record a few opinions on the things they saw. You're gonna hear them in a moment or so. There could be angry disagreements, but their views are normally quite close. A joint review shared between two